Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with our 8 p.m. Tropics talk. Monday Night Live, as the title suggests. We honestly don't have a whole lot to talk about tonight either. Things are starting to quiet down, I feel like, across a lot of the Atlantic. All right, on a serious note, we're going to have to get this Cothless Productions out of here. I'm going to need somebody to start moderating because I get the joke and I like to mess around with hyping up. And we're going to talk about some hype tonight, that's for sure. There's a lot to talk about, actually, about everybody else hyping stuff up, and it's starting to fluster me just a little bit. Yeah, actually, how close are we? We're definitely, in retrospect, in comparison to what we've had out there, yeah, we're quieting down. We have Hurricane Nigel, who is going to be the true definitive fish storm of the season, alongside Margot. Margot was most definitely a fish storm. This guy is not going to come close to breaching that 60-degree west longitude line, so I will most definitely consider that quieting down. Because, I mean, yeah, it's out there spinning, but it's not doing anything. So, I mean, technically it's active, but for all intents and purposes, in terms of impacts and, special phenomena that we want to talk about, that's not, for me, that's not pressing, because it's not really going to do anything. We can sit here and talk about how, a hurricane. But that hurricane, guys, it's not really doing much. And then I really want to dig deep into how everyone's hyping up that southeastern system. I don't care about the Carolina disturbance, even though I'm going to get rained on. I know you had some thoughts on that the other live you did a few days ago. Hey, so what are your thoughts on the safe spot moving more to the east and moving more system to the west? Gabriella, excellent question. So actually, believe it or not, what's going on is that system that everyone is hyping up, I know I'm going to use that word a lot. I'm just really messing around. But everyone's talking about that southeast coastline system that's going to develop. That, believe it or not, is what's going to stop everything from coming out to the west, which is, in my opinion, a little unfortunate because the pattern was ready. The pattern was set up. It was ready to have storms start coming in a little further to the west and kind of make things a little more interesting for us, not only forecasting the weather, but just for folks kind of monitoring the weather. But even though everyone's talking, and I'll highlight it, even though it's not on the chart yet, everyone's talking about this bad boy right in through there. It's not on there yet. That flare-up of thunderstorm activity is just the current frontal system working its way through. But that's actually what's going to save us from Ophelia. Or potentially Philippe, because everyone's saying that this is going to become a named storm. It could become subtropical storm Philippe. Totally different ballgame in terms of what we've been seeing in terms of tropical systems. I don't understand why everybody out there is still saying, named storm, maybe even a hurricane, because that's far. That's the furthest from the truth. Let's see. Hey, all, hope Dark Earth, good to see you. We don't know you, little bro. Sorry, el aniversario del huracán que fue devastador del huracán de Federico Cuarta. Oh, okay, so this is the anniversary for hurricane. Wow, okay, very interesting. I actually didn't know that. Typical Brevard County person behavior. That's every Florida, honestly. Every Floridian. You want a storm to hit Florida? What the heck? No, not that I want it to hit Florida. It's just, the fact that we've had all the people mentioning, and myself included, everything was primed to see something come our way, to see something come closer to the United States, because for a while now, a lot of us here on YouTube and other media platforms, not just social media, were getting flamed for talking about how the big picture patterns setting up for a possible event, these storms could start to change trajectory. But then that anomaly off the southeast coast did exactly that. It was an anomalous setup that kind of came out of nowhere. And even though everyone's kind of going crazy thinking it's worst case scenario, it's actually best case scenario. Because what it's going to do is once again instigate a transition in the pattern. And it's going to drive Ophelia out just like this, just like everything else. We see Nigel doing this. We saw Lee kind of do that. We saw Margot do that. And what this system here is going to end up doing is pulling high pressure and kind of diminishing our high that's built out over the Atlantic back down to a much weaker variant of the ridge. And yeah, we're going to see these storms eject out. That's why I started the live stream with the tropics are going to start to quiet down. Not only are the models really slowing down on, how many systems are coming off of Africa and all that, but at the same time, we're in the middle of transition season, and we're not going to stop seeing frontal system after frontal system evacuate off the East Coast. I mean, you can see one right here. There's a bit of a low spin. There's the jet running all through there. It's building a ridge currently out over the Atlantic, which is why Nigel's going to kind of slow down and then quickly eject off to the northeast once this front can catch up to him. Going more north. Oh, did they, Griffin? I haven't looked. Honestly, I haven't really looking at National Hurricane Center. I'll admit, and I've been saying this, I have National Hurricane Center pulled up. And I'll admit, you guys can throw shade at me. You guys can throw hate. You can say I'm not experienced, I'm not a subject matter expert, and I'm not an official source, but I'm actually very disappointed that National Hurricane Center highlighted the blob off the coastline of the southeast United States like a traditional disturbance, because what they're doing is they're making it seem like there's the potential for a tropical storm or a hurricane right there, and everyone's gravitating to it. Everyone's grabbing hold and saying, whoa, guys, this is it. The Carolinas, prepare. And it's like, guys, no, that's not what's happening at all. It even says right there in the front, the first line, a non-tropical area of low pressure. It's entirely jet-induced. The shortwave trough that's creating havoc for the central and southern plains, even right now, you look at that satellite image, that's what's going to induce this low. And what a lot of people fail to realize is usually this time of year, the jet's running somewhere in through here, like so. That's why typically we have that big old high right there, and most of our systems will track west. But after what happened with Lee and what's going to happen with Nigel now, him helping to fully eject that frontal system off the coast and pull it over the North Atlantic, instead of seeing what we would consider a Hatteras low off of the Carolina coast, I called it in my video today like a Space Coast low, because we're going to have a low form here as opposed to in its traditional source region. See, we have these things called pattern regimes and characterizations, and what they do is they help us kind of do what's called pattern recognition, to where if we see something form up in a fairly traditional spot, that's like the regime. It's a characteristic weather trait of that area. And what Lee did was he kind of helped flush the jet south. So instead of seeing that Carolina regime, that low that starts here and then moves to the north and eventually the northeast, what's crazy is it's starting down here and it's going to follow the same track. Because, I mean, if you look at what I'm drawing here on the NHC chart and then we go over to the forecast models and you watch off the east coast right here, typically we see our Hatteras low form here and track off in this general direction. But watch as you go through time, all it does is it simply forms further to the south. And then look at that. Follows the same exact trajectory. Just like all the lows back behind it. In fact, there you go right there. You get a little right there. Great example. As I go forward in time and the jet can kind of reposition itself, now look, we have our traditional Hatteras low beginning to set up. And it's going to move in that exact same fashion off to the east and deepen down. You see that? We'll change the AOI. And you look out a little off the coast, and you see that it's going to deepen down, and look at that. So, I mean, for what we're calling tropical storm, that's pretty much the exact same structure of it. And it's just back to its original spot because the jet's now back to where it's supposed to be for this time of year. Never you give us so much data on these events, how can anyone hate for that? I don't know. Right now, my video's doing terribly. I think I maybe dorked up the thumbnail or the title of it. It's definitely very goofy. Nancy, I appreciate that. Everyone hit the like button for sure. My channel's suffering after I took my break yesterday. I kind of wanted to take a family day and just relax, especially since there really isn't anything pressing in the weather department to talk about. I'm hoping SpaceX will be able to launch their rocket this week. It depends on what day. I'm not tracking that. I could kind of give you an update on it depending on what the date and time is for that. I wonder if it's all subject to change, though. Gabriella, what do you mean by that? Which one? Or what's subject to change? I feel like Ophelia will be the one. Ale, Ant, Will. I don't think so, buddy. I don't think so. Everyone's trying. Like, they're trying. They're trying to make it seem like, I have my eyes on Ophelia, but if we go to the current models and we go to the ensembles with that, because ensembles are going to be our best friend. Ensembles are going to help us out tremendously since that thing ain't even in the Atlantic yet. And as a matter of fact, I haven't looked at the 12Z ensembles for the Euro just yet. So let's all take a look at that together and we'll see what happens. So there she is. She's coming off the African coast, moving west, moving west. There's our system right over here, coming together off the Florida coastline and moving north, and then moving west, and there it is, see? In fact, shucks, that's even further to the east than they were previously. That looks like it's going to stay way away from everybody. Even Bermuda, they might have to watch out for it, but dang, the latest Euro has it pulling out to sea even faster. And I'm telling you right now, it's because of this bad boy right here. This thing forming off our east coast and moving north with that jet streak. It's going to help to erode that high pressure that tried to reestablish itself over the Atlantic. And if that thing wasn't there, honestly, everyone's kind of taking advantage right now, and they're popping their videos off talking how tropical threat for the Carolinas and, threat for the Southeast. And in reality, I'm going way against the hype train. That's exciting to see. Because with that forming up, we're going to get some wind and rain out of it. It's going to be a low pressure, of course. But because that's forming up and moving the way that it is, it's going to stop Ophelia from hitting anybody. It's going to kind of block her, stiff arm her out to sea again. So is Florida is good? As of right now, yeah, Florida's looking very good. I had someone ask earlier, whatchamacallit, if the Gulf Coast is good as well. I'm starting to lose confidence that we're going to see anything in the Caribbean, too. I'm still looking at it. I'm still investigating and watching. And if I show you the latest models, even the Euro, if you look, has maybe like one or two little weak entities popping up out there. Some ensemble agreement, very weak, nothing alarming. We just have the one member right there thinking a tropical storm could wander off the Yucatan. That's a farce if I've ever seen one. And then we go over to the GFS. Whoops, I still have my pen on. Go over to the GFS and see, is 18Z in? Nope, not yet. 12Z. You go to the GFS, and GFS also has it transitioning out to sea. In fact, the GFS wants to kind of stop development of Ophelia altogether, which is very weird. Because you look at this, and even flipping 5 days into its life cycle, it still has it highlighted as maybe a depression, weak tropical storm by the time it starts approaching the Lesser Antilles. And even that, I don't think is going to pan out. I think we're going to see it eject out much faster than that, and then it pulls it rapidly to the north, barely organizing it into a hurricane. We have maybe 10-15% of our ensembles thinking that it could develop into a hurricane. And then I don't know what the GFS is doing in the Gulf. GFS is doing some weird stuff in the Gulf. It's got ensembles like flying all over the place. If you guys look over in this area, look at that. I watched a video earlier today, and I'm not going to say any names or profiles, but somebody had mentioned that they really trust the GFS quite a bit, and this proves to me why I don't rely on the GFS very much, because the GFS doesn't have a dang clue as to what it's doing. We had trends last week about, hurricane in the Gulf, hurricane in the Caribbean, then, no, I'm just playing, no, it's not there anymore. Then we had Hurricane Ophelia coming across. Now I'm just playing. That's not there anymore. So I don't know what GFS is doing. The only consistent model we have out there right now is the Canadian. Even the Icon has been a little back and forth with future Ophelia out there in the Atlantic. The Euro still wants to develop it. I know that much. The Euro is still developing it and moving it off to the west-northwest. There it is. Also taking its sweet time to develop it, actually. Look at that. That thing keeps it as a depression, very disorganized system all the way through. Yeah, we barely get a tropical storm all the way at the very tail end of this run. This is where I feel like if this holds true, it could maybe get a little interesting. Maybe. I want to say maybe like 5 more times, just because looking at this end scenario with potentially tropical storm Ophelia dead center of the Atlantic and this massive polar high coming off of the coast. Like, that's a huge force field going this way. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens after this point if this synoptic setup holds true. Because that's Nigel up there, if I'm not mistaken, right there. That's Nigel further distorting the pattern. Let's go back in time and see. Yeah, there's Nigel getting sucked in by some of our tropical moisture. Not tropical, excuse me, our polar energy. And they become this almost vortex up over the North Atlantic. And that draws our entity off of the coastline here up in that direction as well. And that's what sucks down almost, I'd have to look at the jet, but that could almost be either a bona fide polar high right there, or maybe even reminiscence of Arctic high coming down as far south with that massive of a pressure gradient. Look at that. It comes straight out of northern Canada and strengthens into a 1035 high out there over the Atlantic. And then we have another one right behind it. So, I mean, still some moving pieces. Definitely can't rule anything out, but it's not looking as crazy or as exciting as it used to be. And last week, it definitely seemed like we could see something trend towards the coastline, at least get into the Caribbean. Some people are still saying we have to watch, but, I mean, with the way the trends have been going over the last 3 days now, I just don't know. I don't see that really happening anymore. GFS is playing with us, pulling tricks on us. I agree. GFS is like going crazy. I don't understand what's happening. It's bringing systems up, and then it doesn't want to bring systems up. And then it brings a weak system up, then it goes Cat 5, and then it doesn't have a system on there at all. Season's not over yet, though. I agree. I definitely agree, Gabrielle. It's not over yet, but definitely a rapid downward trend in activity. Because if you guys have been watching my videos, and I'll go to the Canadian model, because the Canadian model shows it best. If you guys have been watching my videos, every single time we've had a system in the Atlantic that we've been watching, I've always pointed out that we've had like 1, 2, maybe even 3 extra circulations back behind it. But if you go through time here and you go to the very back end of the loop, there goes Ophelia trying to form up. And then look at that. MDR is all clear. Even Africa is all clear. There's no upcoming circulations. There's nothing out there. Out here, we've seen this hybrid system, we'll call it, move up the East Coast. And all that's out there is maybe tropical storm to low-grade Hurricane Ophelia. So we're either being lulled into a false sense of security, and something's going to pop off out of nowhere once everyone is kind of, into the idea that hurricane season's trying to wrap up. Or maybe it is wrapping up, or we're coming close to the conclusion. I'm surprised that we don't have models that can predict weather up to 15 days by now. Is that even possible? It's possible, but not accurately. Not accurately. That's what ensembles are for. Ensembles definitely help paint a little bit better of a picture long term, because we as the computer analysts and the forecasters, or I should say the scientists, can go in there and change the data as it moves through time. Do you think that the frontal system coming off of Florida is too far apart from the one coming off Africa to help it kick it out to sea? Digital dentistry, that's exactly what I was just talking about, actually. The system that's going to develop off of the coast of Florida is what's going to help steer our next system out to sea. That's why all of our ensembles are trending that they're going to do the classic shoop-de-whoop and go out to the Atlantic. Not letting my guard down until the end of the season, of course, anything is possible right now. I agree. Elite Chief Stark, I'm not downplaying it, of course. I'm not saying, we have nothing to worry about. There's still areas that I'm going to consistently investigate. It's just in my blood at this point. But I'd be lying to you guys if I was in here in the chat trying to say, we got to watch, there's something going to happen. There's nothing really indicating that anything's going to happen right now. So it's just, we're back into a holding pattern. And what's a bummer is, there's a lot of folks gravitating towards that southeast system, trying to dare I say it, hype it up and, make it seem like it's going to be a lot worse than what it is. Like, sure, it's going to be an interesting setup for sure. It's going to form up as a bear clinic system. I'll show you that here in a moment. And it could take on somewhat of a tropical. That's why it's going to be subtropical, because it's going to be over the hot waters. That's another thing, too, is where these Hatteras lows typically form off the coast of Cape Hatteras. They're just outside of those warm Gulf Stream waters. So for it to form right over top not only the hotter waters of the West Atlantic, but real close to the Gulf Stream, that's why it could be a little on the gnarly side, or I'll say the dirty side. Actually, you know what? No, I won't say dirty either, because we use that for her. I'll say the sloppy side. It's gonna want to be a low pressure driving a frontal system, but it's also gonna want to try to be a tropical system. So it's like that meme. Why not both? If you guys are familiar with the little girl, why not both? But we'll take a look at that right now to help dispel any kind of hesitancy. Because, I mean, even National Hurricane Center said it, not tropical. But for some reason, everybody wants to keep, mentioning tropical. And I can tell, I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to blast that out of the water. And I'm not the most experienced individual, but I know synoptic meteorology, probably a little bit more than I do tropical meteorology. So here's our jet. As I'd mentioned, there's where we typically see our jet. This was the start of this loop. You can kind of still see, if we go back in time a little bit, here's some remnants of Lee still getting sucked out of the pattern. I went back before the cardinal hour, so this is previously in time. You can see Lee coming up the coastline, moving into the eastern portions of Canada, and you can see that the jet is still doing what it's supposed to do. It's running across the northern tier, the upper Midwest, and exiting across the mid-Atlantic states northeast. This is a textbook setup for a Hatteras low. We typically see when the jet dips down like that and you get this area of increased jet activity, a jet max, or a jet streak, however you prefer to call it, that's where our Hatteras low will form up right there and move this way with the jet flow. But if you watch, since Lee kind of helped to bring all that cold air down and expedite its passage, watch as we go into the future now and look at how far down the trough extends in the southeast. See that? We have what's going on now is split flow. We have all this diffluent air here. The jet's trying to reorient itself, but we have this deep trough over the southeast. And then there's our jet max right there. I gotcha, but do you think the two systems could be too far apart for them to have an effect on it? Nope. The one that's giving us weather right now, the front that's pushing through that Lee helped to drag down further to the south, that is definitely too far out. What I'm talking about now is this tropical storm that everyone keeps on mentioning is going to form off the Florida coast. I'm talking dynamics about that right now. Cape Verde is shutting down. I think the gyro will be forming near the Yucatan. The thunder is booming here in Jupiter. Yeah, we have some thunderstorms out there right now. I was looking at the satellite earlier, and there was some pop-off convection flaring up out of nowhere in, I think, the southern periphery of Florida right now. I wouldn't be surprised if a system just pops off like hold my margarita in the Gulf. Elite Chief Stark, I don't want to sound strange to you guys, but I'd be kind of excited about that. I've been having a lot of fun doing the YouTube content, talking to everybody, and getting acquainted with everybody in these live streams. And if we had something more interesting to talk about and more good, more prevalent information to communicate to y'all, it just gives me more motivation to jump on here and talk to everybody. I'm not saying I'm wishing for bad weather just for the sake of talking to you guys, but I'm more or less, mentioning that I can come on here and say, yeah, guys, everything's good. I'll see you next time and close the stream. Whereas if there's something pressing going on, it gives me the opportunity to connect with you guys and give you as much of the accurate information as possible, if that makes sense. Plus, as a weather enthusiast, it's just exciting to see phenomena that you don't see every day. Would you rather talk about high pressure for 5 minutes, or would you rather talk about something interesting for 5 minutes? And that's with any kind of subject, But, we'll get back into this real quick. So there's our jet. The jet's really off to the south. It's all kinds of disoriented. And when we had split flow doing our analysis back in the day for North America, split flow was an analyst's nightmare because you had frontal systems everywhere, like all over the place. So we have split flow running across the northern tier, the Canadian border, upper Great Lakes, coming back down to the northeast. And then we have this very potent finger of the jet coming across Florida. And you can already see the model is whispering at a low pressure trying to form up there. Before we get into the actual cyclogenesis, let me show you one level below, 500 millibars, to further reinforce my theory. So here we're at 500 millibars, and vorticity is our best friend in this case. We're expecting some pretty significant thunderstorm activity, and a lot of people have been mentioning large hail to very isolated instances of tornadic activity right in this general area. Definitely true. with what we have going on, it's very true. I mentioned that also in my video today. The 32-kilometer NAM did an excellent job of showing exactly where, all that's going to take place. And in fact, we'll go over that real quick. We'll use the NAM in this case just to show you that. So we'll go back to 200 millibars. And if you look right over top, you see that area right there. I'm going to stop the frame. I'll use my yellow ink this time. If you look right in through there, there's splitting of the winds. There's diffluence, spreading apart of the air. And what that does is if you have air in the horizontal plane spreading apart, when you think of the conservation of mass has to fill that area in to keep a state of equilibrium. So if you have air splitting like this in the upper levels, air below it has to rise to fill that gap. And that's one of the pieces why we're going to have such bad weather out there. And then we go on over to 500 millibars. In that same general spot, take a look at that. I didn't even have to adjust the time. Look at all that positive, that PVA is what we used to call it, positive vorticity advection, right in through there. That same energy, because of the split flow, is going to do kind of one of these numbers. Some of it's going to go north, the other piece of it is going to go south. And if you track it through time, watch closely. Here's our shortwave. It's still moving. It's still right in through here. We'll track it out. Come on. I'm not clicking on my line. I'm clicking on my marker. There we go. It's still on the move. It's headed down towards the southeast. And if you track it through time, there's the jet. I mean, not the jet, excuse me. There's our shortwave. That vorticity is pulling into the southeast. Now it's really starting to show itself over the Gulf. And then there you go. What do you know? As soon as it works its way into the Florida area, that's when we start to see that low start to undergo cyclogenesis. And, it doesn't make any sense to me why some people are still trying to convince folks that it's tropical. Because right out of the gate, I can go like this and be like, that's not tropical. Well, David, what makes you say that? That's why. All year we've been talking about how our systems couldn't form in the Caribbean and certain parts of the Atlantic because of shear. Well, I mean, maybe I'm wrong to say this, but that sure as heck looks like a lot of shear right there. I mean, I could be wrong. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. There's nothing in the way of a tropical system forming underneath that. Then as you go through time, you can see that where the jet is situated, you get your low to finally develop, and it's almost on the poleward side of it, because our jet is running right in through here, and there's our low forming right underneath it, if not just barely poleward of where the low or where the jet is situated. So there's nothing saying it won't be a subtropical system. Since it's forming so far to the south, it has some weird dynamics that it's going to kind of interact with. Even though it's going to be a cold feature trickling in from the upper levels of the atmosphere down towards the surface, when those dynamics interact at the surface, that's where it could become a bit more of a hybrid kind of situation and take on some thunderstorm activity that we would typically see in a tropical system. That's the only thing tropical about it, really, is just the fact that it's going to try to organize and develop a bit greater thunderstorm activity with it. But then you track it off, and it moves right on in with the jet. The jet's moving this way, right up in there, right along the coast, and lo and behold, it goes right up with the jet, because that's its support. That's its life support. And then as you can see, even at the very end of the Euro here, you can see how we go from such a meridional pattern, that north-south setup, to west to east flow at the very end, and that's what's going to stop Ophelia from coming in. One interesting thing, though, right here, as a matter of fact, I will mention this, is there's a hell of a lot of anticyclonic movement out there in the Caribbean. So, like I said, I'm still investigating that area. I haven't completely dropped my guard and, kind of closed my eyes and went to sleep on everything. There's a giant anticyclone right over top where Climate Prediction Center is thinking we could have a little bit of a reignition of thunderstorm activity and maybe another tropical cyclone. None of our models are indicating it. None of the models are highlighting it at all. The only one that still continues to try to sing to us in terms of maybe something forming out there is, once again, the Canadian model. But the Canadian model also lost a little bit of my my trust, because for a while there it was highlighting something right around the 24th to the 25th, and it's not there anymore. It's done what the GFS typically does and moved it further in time, right there to the 28th. And then we get another round of something right at the very end, right there, into October. Now, I'm at a bit of an impasse with this. That is interesting to me. And this is much further out than our deterministic Canadian model can go, so it's not going to pick it up. This is 300 some odd hours into the future, and the Canadian model only goes out 240 hours. So, I mean, we're not out of the woods. This would be pretty intense, too, if that actually does take shape. But, like I said, I'm very wishy-washy, and I'm not developing feelings for it just yet because of the fact that we went from late September, and now it pushed it to beginning of October. And when models start doing that, it's like they're trying their best, just like we are, to communicate something like something's going to happen. It just might not be then. So it might be here and it might be there, give me a chance. Something's trying to happen, I promise. And I see that, and it's like, it's trying to tell us something. It's almost like it's using Morse code. Morse code. So still something worth monitoring. Like a few of you have already led on to in the chat, 175% on board with you guys. We're not out of the woods yet. We're not done yet. Just because there's nothing on the immediate horizon doesn't mean that things won't change. It's the weather, after all. Things are constantly in a state of dynamics. Or in a state of dynamic change. Somebody asked about Alabama real quick. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just kind of explaining. Alabama, I mean, everyone in the United States right now is looking green. I'll just put it to you that way. I'm going to broad brush it. I know we have that system trying to take shape off the southeast coast, but that's going to be just another standard, storm system. Nothing too extravagant with it. We won't see any kind of significant or severe weather with it. Some elevated gusty winds. Maybe, some debris lofted, if anything. Nothing severe. And when I say debris, I just mean like loose twigs and branches and other things like that, unless we can really start to kick up its intensity. Some models do indicate that just off the coast, we could see 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts. So, I mean, it could be reminiscent of a tropical storm, but nothing to write home about. And when I say that, I mean just in comparison to what we've seen. If we're not talking an Idalia or let alone, God forbid, an Ian here, we're not talking anything like that. We could see some localized heavier rainfall, especially if the stratiform precip along the warm frontal boundary can really wrap into the mid-Atlantic states. But, no hail, no extreme winds to where you need to shelter in place. Won't see an extravagant storm surge or anything like that. So, yeah. Dark Earth, I 100% agree. That's why I still have faith in it. I'm not dropping my guard all the way down because you're right. If it wasn't for the Canadian model, I would have not have started barking about Idalia well before she popped up. So I give the credit where it's due, and the Canadian model is still showing something, and that's not like a little something. It's a gigantic blob the size of Florida right there. So it has my attention, and I'm still investigating. It's not like I've completely shut my eyes to the tropics. In terms of what our deterministic models are calling for, they're trying to quiet down. Ophelia is a bit on and off kilter. It's a little weird. But, I mean, there's still something highlighted down there. And I'm sure if we go over to the Euro ensembles for that same general area, you start to see... Actually, no, Euro ensembles don't have anything down there. Yeah, Euro doesn't have anything. Let's go to the GFS ensembles. Because really what I'm looking for is just the lowering pressure trend. Yeah, see, so as you go down the road into the beginning of October, you just generally see lower pressure out there across the board. GFS isn't picking up on anything. I mean, there's this one rogue member right there that wants to form something up and push it right into Florida. But that's it. Just the one little boom right there. There it is, guys. Hurricane. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. No, that's nothing. But, there's still an area to watch, an area of interest, we'll call it. Gabriel, thanks for joining in. Everything's going swell, just trying to de-escalate the hype. Nicole flew a kiddie pool across the streets, and every time a system wanted to threaten me, I remember that. Got to break out the kiddie pool. You got to have a bunch of them on reserve. Do you think if the frontal system doesn't help Ophelia go out to sea and it gets close to Florida that the shear could help it stay off the coast? It won't necessarily stay off the coast, but it'll just get wiped out. There's no way it'll survive. It'll end up getting ripped apart. Kind of like we're going into October, so I'll start using the little, metaphors. It'll be like Michael Myers tearing into you with a chef's knife. It's exactly what'll happen with Ophelia if it goes into all that wind shear. So we'll see. I mean, you're looking at GFS ensembles right here. You can see all of them bring it out to sea, even that one that kind of drives it right through the Caribbean islands, both the Lesser and Greater Antilles. That's a little concerning, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm not going to start reporting on that because the general consensus is north and then northeast, or I should say northwest and then north. Even the Canadian ensembles for Ophelia right now are bringing it, keeping it well offshore. Look at that. Keeping it well out there. This would be Ophelia right in through here. That cluster you see just off the right-hand side of the chart. Bam. Gone. So, I mean, technically, since you brought it up a little bit ago, Dark Earth, I'll make mention of it. I'll give it some credit. I'll give it a little more credit, okay? Technically speaking, the Canadian model has not broken run-to-run consistency, because if you look right between the 24th into the 25th and the 26th, something forms up, albeit real deep into the Caribbean, and then immediately moves inland. So it's not like it took it away. It just changed its location and its trajectory. So, I mean, it's still on track, and now that we're coming into the new times, there's something else moving up towards Florida, washing out before it gets there, then another little thing that tries to get up there, and then we got that giant glob of stuff that forms up. So I don't know. Maybe we will have another period of time where the Caribbean just ignites. Maybe the fuse will get lit and the dynamite will start popping off. Gabriel, thanks, dude. I really appreciate it. This mic's been working really well. So is that shear over Florida highly likely to be around? Only for now. Only for now. We had Lee drag it down to the south. Lee is the one that really interfered with the pattern because of his transition to a post-tropical cyclone as he moved into the northeast, and he really helped pull in a lot of extra cold air that was situated over the central Canadian provinces, the Great Lakes, and then move it down into our neck of the woods. That's the reason we have the front coming through right now and all that jet energy. Digital dentistry, I was just answering your question, buddy. I'm getting to you, I promise. I'm getting there. Nothing will ever be stronger than Hurricane Lee. What you mean this year, Corbin? Are you saying this year? Because I may be on board with that. If you meant overall, I can tell you right now, homie, that there were a lot of storms much stronger than Hurricane Lee, especially given the fact that Lee kind of like blew its top and then disintegrated after that. He never got his act back together again. Digital dentistry, yes, sir, yeah. What would change the shear sticking around? A Dark Earth, really what's going to happen is the jet's going to try to go back to a state of equilibrium. The jet wants to see west to east flow. When it's not in west to east flow, it's actually all out of whack, and that's what causes our bad weather. It's the atmosphere being out of a state of equilibrium, and truthfully, the reason we have all this crazy weather phenomena, to kind of sum it up in a really giant nutshell, is the fact that because the atmosphere is like a dynamic fluid, there's no way for it to ever achieve that dynamic equilibrium. So that's why we have severe weather here and good weather over here, but then bad weather down here, and then crazy weather up there, but then it's nice and peaceful here. It's constantly in a state of flux. And that's what keeps us busy and kind of looking at everything constantly. The jet be mad when it is out of place. I feel, yeah, the jet's really frustrated right now, that's for sure. For those of you talking about storm chasing and whatnot, I'm still in. I mean, if we do get something coming up our way and we do see something fire off out there in the Caribbean and head towards Florida, I'm in. You bet your bottom dollar I'm in there. I'll definitely... like the Rick and Morty meme, you SOB, count me in, or whatever it says. So yeah, is Florida going to get heavy rain late week? This week? I don't know about heavy rain, but we'll definitely get some increased storm coverage, that's for sure. We'll go ahead and start taking a look at that, as a matter of fact. Let's go to the 12-kilometer NAM for the southeast and kind of dig in a little and see what's up. So this is as we go through the day tomorrow. You can see that frontal system has already kind of gone stationary. South Florida looks like they could see some increased thunderstorm activity, but nothing too crazy tomorrow. Wednesday, looks like we could see an increase in thunderstorm coverage, and then Thursday and Friday, once that system starts popping off the coastline, that's when we'll really see our coverages go up. So maybe not throughout much of the week. We'll still have some flare-ups, kind of like what we're seeing right now, just because of the dynamics in play. But it won't be until our southeastern system can start to deepen down and form up a little bit and kind of broaden out. That's when our shower activity is going to go up, which is kind of a bummer because I wanted to go to the beach this weekend. Although it kind of looks like if I were to go to a West Coast beach, I could get away with it. We'll see. But the shear would still be around Florida for when Ophelia is around? Ophelia is not coming this way right now, homie. I promise. I promise. Digital dentistry, we got this. I'm taking good care of you right now. The shear is what's going to stop Ophelia, yes. But it's also just not going to make it close enough for the shear to really create an impact on it. If it does, something would have had dramatically needed to change. So, I mean, it's a possibility. But right now, I'm telling you, buddy, that, we don't have to really worry too much. Storm chasing sounds fun. Unlikely, unfortunately, to a lot of rain. Yeah, we would need a lot of it to get out of the dry conditions we've been. Could see a northwest to southeast shear at sunset tonight near Charlotte Harbor, Florida, high tops. I like storm chasing, but otherwise it is not safe. No, storm chasing is definitely not safe. I mean, that's as extreme of weather activity you could possibly get into. You're literally putting yourself in harm's way for observation purposes. But that's why it takes special kinds of individuals to get out there and do the thing. I'm in Orlando Friday, gonna be a wet one. Yeah, it looks like it. I'll bring the drinks if we go storm chasing. Heck yeah, I'll make a whole thing. I'll bring the Waffle House. Yes, just bring the whole Waffle House with us. Not just the food or the entrees. I mean, like, just bring a whole restaurant and unpack it. But, yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't joking when we... Oh, you're very welcome. I know you're just trying to get a feel for the lay of the land and all that. That's why I'm happy to answer the questions. So just rest assured that if there was any possibility or anything changing, I'd let you know, I promise. Even though it seems like I'm trying to stay away from the hype train, it's not that I don't want to hype up. Well, I mean, that's true. I don't want to seem like I'm hyping things up that don't need to be hyped. But it's at the same time, it's like when there is no need for worry or stress, I'm going to emphasize that just as much if there was a need for it to be, whoa, okay, like, let's hold on. But yeah, guys, if the Canadian model does pan out just like it did with I Diddly Doodah, then yeah, we'll host a storm chasing little thing. I would absolutely, I don't know how we could do events on here. Maybe we could do like a live stream and collaborate on a date and time to meet up, and then maybe take it over to another social media outlet to coordinate, communication and whatnot. But I'd be big down. Heck yeah. I mean, if there's one last chance to do some storm chasing before the hurricane season wraps up, I'm in. 170,000% in. Dragging the Waffle House across the road. You got to reel it in or something like that. I do storm chase when around here for sure. I'm always out there nearly getting hit by lightning or something like that. The other day I posted on my TikTok that I was in the middle of like 50, 60 mile an hour winds outside of my house. Pub subs, you're winning me over right now. The chicken tendy subs, 170% for sure. I got to stop saying that. I'm just worried, as in your video earlier tonight, you had said something about deep high pressure building to the north and pushing it west. No, actually, I didn't say that. I shouldn't have said that. I don't believe I said that. I don't think in this video anyways. I'd mentioned that it'll try to move west and then eventually kick to the north because our high pressure is breaking down. I know a few other people have been mentioning that it's going to move westward and we have to watch it, but right now the trends indicate that that's not what's going to happen. And the high pressure that's building in is over the northeast, and you could see it on a lot of our high-res model data. It's what's going to push Nigel off the shore, or not off the shore, but it's going to push Nigel from that northerly track to a northeast track. Publix chose the wrong year to get rid of the hurricane cakes. Yeah, yes and no. I'd be willing to chase for educational purposes and also for assistance research. Absolutely, that's the main reason I do it. Not necessarily for outside source educational purposes, but I just love getting in there and observing the phenomena and taking observations. You shouldn't want a hurricane, dark, eat. I don't think anyone really wants a hurricane. It's just a matter of, the exciting part of it. We're all in here because we all share the same interest. Going to turn Tropics on talk into food talk. Tropics talk. Then we're going to have the 9 p.m. food talk with Weather Center Nazario. Foodie Center Nazario. What does a front have anything to do with where a hurricane? What does a front have to do with where a hurricane goes? Well, where the front goes, the hurricane stays away from, in layman's terms. There's a lot of different moving pieces in there, but essentially you have the cold air versus the warm air, and as we all know, cold air is much more dense and more potent than warm air, so that's one piece that's going to kind of punch it away from it. Number two, low pressure versus high pressure. Fronts usually outline high pressure ridges that are building in. And so if you have very low pressure versus high pressure, low pressure wants to go towards even lower pressure. It's not going to go into the high pressure, so it's going to run away from that as well. So those are the two main reasons why they'll stay away from it. And then number three, aloft, you have the trough axes usually supporting the cold air down at the surface, and that's what's going to help to suck it in and kick it back out into the pattern, because that's essentially its steering flow. Layman's terms means, just in like broad brush terminology, none of that fancy weather jargon that some of us will use. One of my favorite hurricane experiences working at Universal, riding out Ian, almost like storm chasing, getting paid. Yeah, you had all the flash flooding going on over there. You think we'll see rain from this in Citrus? We need it. That's tough, because, a lot of it, looking at the high-res NAM, this is the 12-kilometer NAM, so this is much higher resolution. It keeps a lot of the activity off the coast. Now, could we see some flare-ups interior part in western parts of Florida because it's drawn in energy? Yeah, we have a shortwave overhead, so it could definitely ignite all sorts of other things. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll see. Let's see what what else can we look at? I don't think HRRR won't go out that far. The 3-kilometer NAM will not go out that far. Actually, look at that. The 3-kilometer NAM has some really sporty thunderstorms going on over Central Florida on Thursday. Wednesday into Thursday, West Coast Florida. Look at that. That's pretty intense. At least according to the 3-kilometer NAM, that's really high res. I wonder if we can get it closer here on, let's see, HRRR, NAM. Let's see, the NAM United States. Let's go to Florida. We'll go to Florida big picture. And then does this have, it does not. Bummer. I wonder if there's a high res look we can look at here. NSEP high res, United States. Let's try this. We'll go to Florida, and then precipitable water. Nope, we can't get any closer than what we have with the 3-kilometer NAM right here. So Wednesday into Thursday, a really intense nocturnal thunderstorm event. That looks pretty rigorous too. That's sharp. Gonna have to watch that. Could have some stuff knocking on our back door. If you can't be humorous about it, no amount of therapy can help with the anxiety. I agree. Is hurricane season ending quietly? Forget about it. It might. It could either end with a bang. If we get something in the Caribbean that just ignites, then it could be, like the 4th of July. Where it stands right now, like as we're doing this talk, I'm not talking like next week or whenever. I'm saying like as it stands as of this evening, it does seem like it's going to kind of go out quietly. It's going to shut the door peacefully on its way out. I hate huge storms that cause trauma. I agree. This is the first time I'm hearing about a layman. Not a layman, it's just layman's terms. But that's a real thing, layman's terms. That looks pretty interesting, though. Little micro-scale future outlook on Wednesday night into Thursday night. We could see some really powerful thunderstorm activity over Central Florida. So we'll have to watch out for that. It's never fun to mess around with nocturnal thunderstorms either. During the daytime, it's all fun and games because you can see it coming a mile away. But at night when things get dark and you have to rely on flashes of light, to highlight anything coming towards you, that's when it's a little more sinister. Let's see what we have. This doesn't, I'm going to go to College of DuPage. They have better convective products. Let's go to the NAM Nest. See if the NAM Nest, the 3 kilometer NAM here, is calling for that stuff. Let's go to convective products, surface-based CAPE, and then we'll go Wednesday into Thursday. Oh, yeah. Wednesday into Thursday could be a really intense afternoon. We have a lot of good surface-based CAPE out there. What does the mixed layer CAPE look like? Mixed layer CAPE is also looking really good late Saturday. Basically, what the difference is, surface-based would be just, daytime heating. Mixed layer would be if we had any sort of mid to upper level mechanisms that would help drive thunderstorm activity. I'm looking at both because we have that shortwave coming in from the east, like I'd mentioned, back up in through this area, moving in. And then we also have just our daytime heating out here because Florida is pretty much absolutely unstable 90% of the year. Let's go. Let's see what we have in terms of supercell composite. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, look at that. We're really going to have to watch later this week. I'm surprised SPC doesn't have anything for us right now. Sigtorn's probably not showing anything. Oh, no, Sigtorn is showing something. Updraft helicity is not looking too good, though. Updraft helicity, the spinach with the updrafts, that's not looking too good. But let's go to the simulated reflectivity. Yeah, look at all that stuff blowing up. Wow. Bet you that's our shortwave coming in to start really kicking off that storm off the coastline. So, yeah, Wednesday into Thursday, that could get kind of sporty for us. Let's see if Storm Prediction Center has anything up there yet. Maybe they do. Maybe we're on to something here. Lost my mouse. By the way, after we look at this, I'm going to start closing out the stream, guys. Oh, yeah, look at that. There it is. Albeit marginal, but they have something. Nothing in terms of tornadic activity, but they have us under a marginal threat for severe. And I know marginal doesn't sound like much, but from SPC standards, that is kind of a bit. Well, let's see. Day two, we have a little bit out there as well. There's that slight risk for all the shortwave activity in the central and southern plains, and then it just goes up for us in Florida. So, yeah, SPC's highlighting something for us out there as well. So, Wednesday into Thursday, let's see what happens. Wednesday into Thursday is looking pretty sporty, very sporty. It looks like 18 Zulu is 2 p.m. in the afternoon, so we could see convective ignition around 3 to 4 p.m., and then it'll really, really fire off after dark, which sucks. Let's see what's going on out there. Vertical velocity. Yeah, we get some pretty aggressive updrafts out there. Very aggressive. What we're looking at here is 700 millibar vertical velocity in the micro scale category of things. And what that's showing is how intense our updrafts could be within these storms. And yeah, Wednesday into Thursday night, I mean, it's verifying really well with what's happening out there right now on satellite. I know South Florida is getting some thunderstorms. And then on Wednesday Wednesday night into Thursday is looking really intense for Central Florida. So we'll have to watch that. And SPC does have something out there as well. And you're right, excuse me, I saw that thunderstorm. Sorry, marginal is over Oklahoma and parts of Texas, but they have us highlighted for the thunderstorm outlook. So they're tracking it. We could see it go up if things change. So we'll have to see. Gotta sleep. Bye, Supercharas. Sorry about that. We're getting ready to close out the stream here, too. But lightning in the dark is amazing. But lightning in of itself, absolutely. I'm in Miami-Dade, and it's lightning like crazy. Yeah. That commute from Orlando to Winter Haven will be interesting on Wednesday. Yes, definitely. Especially if it's in the evening. especially if it's in the evening. You got to be very careful. That's not hype. Just looking at what we're seeing in terms of thunderstorm activity and knowing the drivers around here, that you got to be careful. Let's take a look at the radar right now. Oof, actually, there's something firing right outside once again. Are we going to have another thunderstorm end to the stream? Let's see. Oh, that's not too close to us here where I'm at, but nice little flare up of thunderstorm activity right here. Outflow boundaries moving through the pattern as well. And then South Florida. We'll go ahead and switch over to satellite imagery, though. So this way we can get a look at all of Florida. Go back, and we'll go to localized sectors. We'll look at... Nope, I want one more up above from that. Sub-regional sectors. There we go. Let's look at all of Florida. There we go. So there's our front. Our front's right about... You can kind of see it in the low cloud. Our front's right in through here. And that's the jet, all this upper-level cirrus right there. Jet's troughing in. And you can see the front, very faint whispers of it in this very, very dark gray cloud coverage right there. It gets mixed in with all of our cloud cover over here, but it's there. Our front's very slowly trudging down to the south. So yeah, Wednesday night into Thursday, we're going to have to watch out. Forget about it. Have a good night as well. I just wanted to cool down here. It should start to slowly get a little cooler. Can you please check Palm Bay's weather? I'm in Bradenton area. What is it looking like? Wednesday night into Thursday, you might have some storm activities out there watching. If there is no more tropical cyclone in the Gulf, then the water will be very warm for severe storms in the winter. If El Nino, yeah, that's what I'm more concerned about at this point. We'll definitely see some really strong thunderstorm activity once those systems can move into the south because of the El Nino pattern. That's when I think El Nino will show itself. It was unable to really do much for hurricane season, but as we get into fall and especially winter, that's when things might change, especially if we don't have a lot of significant upwelling out there. Palm Bay, yeah, might get some rain. It's really just going to depend on what happens with that system off the coast. We have our front there, so... On and off isolated pockets of really intense thunderstorms are a possibility because of the front, and then once the short wave and the low can start to deepen off the coast, that coverage will go up a little bit. But, yeah, that'll just about do it, everybody. I came into this thinking that we weren't going to have much to talk about, but we ended up finding some stuff to talk about, so very cool. Very cool. If there aren't any other questions, though, we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. We're just shy of the hour mark. Will Orlando get rain tomorrow? They might. It looked like our thunderstorm chances were a little lower tomorrow because we just had that initial push of, quote, cooler air coming across the state. We'll go back to the 3-kilometer NAM. And if you look, this is tomorrow. We get very, very faint whispers of storm activity over South Florida because that's where that frontal boundary is kind of draped. And then going into Wednesday into Thursday is when we're going to have our, we'll say, Central Florida main event before our system off the coast can start to form up. Yeah, there's a big military site here in Palm Bay. You can see it from space. Wow. But yeah, Wednesday forward is when our rain chances are going to start to go up. That's for sure. That's for sure. But ladies and gentlemen, if you have no pertinent questions, comments, or concerns, we will start to go ahead and wrap up this Monday night iteration of Tropics Talk with Weather Center Nazario. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's always been a pleasure, and it will continue to be a pleasure talking to you guys. We'll have to keep our eyes out on the Caribbean, because honestly, the Caribbean, and as weird as this may sound, is our last hope for any kind of potent tropical activity, because honestly, I don't know if we're going to see too much off of Africa. Africa looks like it's trying to close up shop, if you will. Have an awesome night, David. Watch the Burrowers. The Burrowers, okay. I'll definitely have to keep a note of that. Dark Earth, you have a wonderful night as well. Thank you for tuning in. Janice, you as well. Thank you for tuning in. It's always wonderful to see you all in here. We'll do this again. As a matter of fact, we'll do this again Wednesday night so we can all jump on into this chat and see what's taking shape over Central Florida. We'll start the live stream with that. Zenful, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Always a pleasure to have you in here too. One last question. FaZe, go for it quick. Let's fire it out there. Corbin, bye. Have a good night. Thank you very much for tuning in. All eyes on the Gulf. Thanks again. Have a good night, y'all. Elite Chief Stark, I agree. All eyes are on the Gulf and or the Western Caribbean. That is our last semblance of some significant tropical activity if it does decide to pop off. Ethan's Life, bye. Have a great night. Christine, thank you. Have a good night as well. We'll see you soon. In the winter, we should storm chase severe weather. Absolutely. We'll still continue to have these talks, so we can always talk about it in there. Will there be any storms in October? Well, I mean, again, like I just mentioned, we're still waiting to see what the Caribbean's going to do. A lot of us folks on here are mentioning the Central American gyre, that oscillating pattern that likes to bring back an area of low pressure that could spin up some cyclonic, feature out there and develop into a tropical cyclone. So we'll see. Still waiting and watching. I'm still investigating that whole source region. So we'll see what happens. Still kind of up in the air. As of right now, the way things look, Ophelia could be our last storm for a little bit. As we go further in time and get towards the very end of September, maybe we'll see something on the horizon on our computer models. But right now, it looks like Ophelia could be a little bit of a pause. Yeah, and a lot of it will be. Where that system's forming up, we're going to get a lot of it inland Florida as well before it starts to shake up to the north. Ooh, excuse me. Pardon me. All right, you guys. Well, starting to see the viewers drop, so we'll go ahead and call it. We'll see you tomorrow for our next full segment of Weather Center Nazario. I believe we're on episode 34 now. So we're officially 30-plus episodes deep onto the YouTube channel. And Wednesday night at 8 p.m., we will reconvene for another 8 p.m. Tropics talk, and we'll actually see what's going on in Central Florida, since right about at the 8 p.m. mark, we should start to see most of our significant thunderstorm activity take shape. So we'll see what's up. FaZe Jarvie, I'll take a look at that precip model. I know exactly which one you're talking about. You're probably looking at the climatological products, so I'll glance at that after this. But, folks, that'll just about do it for our 8 p.m. Tropics talk. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.